As an agent, you'll need to work harder for less money once this goes into effect. You'll need to explain your worth and value to buyers in order for them to work with you. And then you won't make as much when you finally do get them a house. Fortunately, I agree with this. Welcome to Agent Investor, the only brand that helps real estate agents get off the real estate roller coaster. And today's topic couldn't fit any more clearly into the agenda that we've always had, that yes, you should sell houses. Yes, you should still be an agent, but you've got to protect yourself from the ups and downs of the market by investing in real estate. Because today, we're going to discuss the NAR settlement that just took place within the past couple of days, within the past week. And we're going to talk about the implications for agents and, more importantly, what you need to do in order to not only survive moving forward, but thrive. Okay? Again, very, very important statement. You can actually benefit moving forward, not just get set back by what happened in the settlement. So I put out a couple of pieces of information over the past couple of days. One of the things that I put out on my personal Facebook account, my Tommy Caffarella Facebook account, was a recommendation for everybody to read the book or listen to the Audible book of Who Moved My Cheese. It is a great book that's very relevant to today, to what's been happening in the past couple of weeks with these changes. And so I'm going to read off just a couple of highlights from that book because they're so relevant to the mindset that you need to have going into uncertain times. And this isn't pertaining just to the NAR settlement, but this is at any, change in your life, any business change. So I'm going to read kind of the highlights of this book really, really quickly. All right. So the top says the handwriting on the wall. The handwriting on the wall is that change happens. Okay. Change is always happening, right? We do not live in a static world. Rules change. The economy changes. Our industry changes, etc. And in the book, Who Moved My Cheese, they call the cheese, they call it cheese happens. And they say they keep moving my cheese. And the premise of the book is that these mice, they're always looking for cheese. The cheese is always in the same spot all the time. And then at some point, the cheese gets moved and the mice no longer know where it is. So the cheese is always going to get moved, the cheese being an analogy for money. The rules are going to change, and that always happens. The second thing here is to anticipate change. Get ready for the cheese to move, meaning that we know in our industry, in the economy, in our personal lives, change is going to happen. So we have to anticipate this. And we've been talking about this NAR settlement going back to last summer. If you go back to our Facebook group at www.agentinvestor.com, or if you go back on our podcast, we hosted a 1-hour conversation about the potential things that could happen going back, into the summer. And to be completely honest with you, I'm even surprised at how this ended up. It actually ended probably a little bit worse for real estate agents than I anticipated. But you can get all of our comments going back then and what we recommended doing back then. And again, if you hadn't taken any action on that today, we're going to tell you about what we recommend as of today. Okay, so it says adapt to change quickly. This is a very, very important part of this NAR settlement and changes in business. Those who adapt quickly will find the new cheese, meaning like when the cheese gets moved, the people who adapt, they're going to actually get a bigger piece of that cheese pie than those who did not adapt quickly. So I can tell you, as soon as this news came out, this breaking news came out, people fit into one of three camps. One of those camps is what I would call kind of the denial camp. And the denial camp is basically saying that nothing is going to change. And they're kind of digging their heels, in the sand, saying nothing is going to change. I can tell you for sure, 100% degree certainty, that some things are going to change. How they exactly change is up for debate, right? And that's what we're going to talk about today. But what I can guarantee is that everybody who is planning on doing nothing differently is putting themselves at risk. When I run my business, I like to eliminate as much risk as possible. In my opinion, just saying, hey, nothing's going to change, I'm not going to do anything differently in my business is a huge mistake. It's risky. I've got 4 kids. I want to try to eliminate financial risk from my life as much as possible. So you've got to be ready to adapt, right? And then you've got to change, right? You've got to actually move with the cheese. You have to move what you actually do. Enjoy the change. And by the way, the ending here, this is just part of the book. Be ready to change quickly again, right? Because something else may happen. And there could be many iterations of how this could impact our industry. I'm going to talk again about some of the impacts that are possible, but just keep this in mind. So what actually happened? Okay. Well, I'm going to just read from CNN, right? This is what CNN said. Breaking news from CNN. The 6% commission, a standard in home purchase transactions, is no more. This is what CNN put out there. Keep this in mind. This is what consumers are reading. In a sweeping move expected to reduce the cost of buying and selling a home, the National Association of Realtors announced Friday a settlement of landmark antitrust lawsuits by agreeing to pay $418 million in damages and eliminating rules on commissions from NAR. This is what NAR said. Compensation offers moved off the MLS. NAR has agreed to put in place a new rule prohibiting offers of compensation on the MLS. Offers of compensation could continue to be an option if consumers can pursue off MLS through negotiation and consultation with real estate professionals, and sellers can still offer buyer concessions on the MLS. For example, concessions for buyer closing costs. This change will go into effect July 2024. Now, I want to just say something about that date really quickly before I go into some more on this right here. I got a text message that was sent to me from a very prominent company, basically saying that there's no way that this is going to happen by July, that this is going to be extended out, etc. That may or may not be the case. Nobody knows right now. But again, I'm going to just, say this as best I can, off the book, Who Moved My Cheese. Those who adapt quickly are going to win here. What you don't want to do, and what I did not like at all about that message, that there's going to be delays, is it puts in the perception that you've got all this time to keep doing exactly what you've always been doing, which is, to me, I think it's just poor advice. So keep that in mind. But again, going back to the couple of main changes. Okay, so buyer agent compensation is no longer going to be allowed to be in the MLS, meaning literally, like you're probably not even going to have a box to be able to put in the comp, and buyer agents are not going to be able to see on the MLS, right? It could be somewhere else, but they're not going to be able to see on the MLS what is going to be paid. The second part of this is that buyer agreements are going to be mandatory moving forward. Okay, so those are two really, really big changes. Okay, the first is that the seller can still offer buyer agent compensation, but it can't be listed in the MLS. The second is you're going to need to have a buyer agent agreement for working with all buyers moving forward, which is pretty big, right? And I've heard some people, saying, I've talked to a lot of people that have said, well, agents should have already been doing this. Yes, I agree. But I will tell you that this alone, just that buyer agreement component of it, is important, because here is the reality of how most conversations go. A lot of conversations go when an agent is meeting a buyer for the first time. And we call that in our industry a buyer consultation, right? So I get a lead. a referral. I get some meeting with this person who's buying a house. You go out, you meet with the buyer or buyers, potential buyers of a property. You have a conversation with them, typically about all of the amazing things that you're going to do. These are the list of 50 things that I'm going to do. And oh, by the way, I'm going to do that for free. And oh, by the way, right? Free meaning like the buyer doesn't have to pay. And oh, by the way, on top of the fact that I'm going to be working for you and you're not going to have to pay me, I'm not even going to bring up the fact that like we need to sign a buyer agreement because it wasn't mandatory in the past. So if you think about this, because a lot of what I'm hearing out there is all about how this impacts agents. But it really, the thing to think about is to put yourself in the consumer shoes, which is why I mentioned that CNN article. You're the consumer, right? And you're a potential buyer of a property. And you go meet with an agent, and the agent seems really nice. They seem knowledgeable. They tell you that they're going to do all of these things for you. They tell you that the seller is going to pay for the commission, and they don't even mandate that you sign a buyer agreement. Yes, you sign the agency disclosure, but not a buyer agreement. Most buyers are going to be sold, right? Like there doesn't seem like any commitment, and there's no out-of-pocket costs. So for most agents, and I don't know what the percentage is, but I bet at least 50% of all agents basically do it that way. And they didn't have a buyer agreement, and they went in and they had that conversation of all the benefits. And from the buyer's perspective, you're like, why would I not do this? This person's going to get me in a house next week. They're going to refer me to a mortgage person. They're going to help me with everything that they can. And so almost 100% of the time, unless I don't like that person or I don't think they're knowledgeable or I'm shopping around to pick the best buyer agent, most buyers are going to work with that person. And unless something changes, most of the time, they are then going to actually, buy a property and that agent is going to get paid. Well, now that's going to be a little bit different. And I'm not going to speculate on exactly how buyer agents are going to get paid. There's a lot of different ways that they could potentially get paid. But what I can tell you is that if you are now mandated to put a buyer agreement in front of a buyer, a certain percentage of those buyers are not going to sign that agreement, right? Especially if they believe that there is a chance that they're going to have to pay out of pocket. So I'm going to make a statement that's going to be, it's a statement that I hesitate to say because I think some people are going to take this the wrong way. Now, keep in mind, I'm a real estate agent. I've got a brokerage of over 400 agents, but I'm going to make a statement that is probably going to be unpopular in the agent community, but it's factual. I would say that if I had to put a number on this, at least half of all buyers, if they were told that they had to cut a check for $1,500, 1500, to pay a buyer agent to help them show homes, and that was going to be the only compensation that the buyer agent was going to get, I would say that at least half of all buyers would be unwilling to pay that. Okay? And I'm talking about $1,500, a small amount of money compared to what most buyer agent gets paid on these deals. So if a buyer perceives, or in reality, has to cut a check, and I'm not saying that this is the only way that a buyer agent can get paid, trust me. I am just saying that if a buyer agent in any way, if a buyer in any way feels like they're going to have to come out of pocket to pay that buyer agent, I'm not so sure they're going to be willing to do that. I'm not even so sure that even if a buyer agent explains how it's going to work and is still going to try to get compensated from the listing agent, I'm still not sure that a certain percentage of buyers are going to be willing to sign that buyer agreement, right? And we all know this. Like those of us who have been in the industry for a while, if you think about all of the times that you've put a buyer agreement in front of somebody, we all know that we're not going to get 100% success rate, right? So again, compare that to how it used to work. It used to work, you go, you talk to a buyer, you talk about the houses they want to look at, you tell them all the great things you're going to do, and then you didn't have to use a buyer agreement. And yes, you're going to convert most of those people. Okay. So again, I'm talking a little bit about the perception of buyers and sellers. So the other thing that I mentioned here, I listed off the headline from CNN. I want to read that headline again, right? And this was not just CNN. This was many outlets that were putting out this content. And I've heard many real estate professionals talk about the misinformation that's out there. And I'm putting that in air quotations. What I'm here to tell you is that whether the information is correct or it's misinformation or it's not, it is being put out there. Consumers are seeing it, and they are now thinking about this stuff. So the headline from CNN literally read, the 6% commission, a standard in home purchase transactions, is no more. Okay? So that can be interpreted in a million different ways. But what I can tell you for a fact is there are certainly sellers out there that are going to read that and are going to say, I should be paying a lot less than 6%, or maybe I should even be paying nothing. If I just read the headline alone, I'm thinking in my head for sure that I'm not paying a 6% commission. Now, I want to be technical here for a second, because a lot of people have said to this statement, standard is 5% in my area or 4% in my area. It doesn't matter. That's just small details, not really relevant. What that message is saying on CNN is that there is a big change happening with commissions, and it's good for me as the seller because I'm going to pay less. That's what a lot of sellers are going to interpret this. So again, how does that impact an appointment in person, right? An appointment in person, somebody meets with a seller in person, or two agents meet with the seller in person. Seller has in their mind that they're going to be paying less than a normal commission, that they no longer have to pay a buyer agent. And again, people will get technical. Well, they always could have not paid a buyer agent. Well, yeah, true, but it wasn't customary, right? So it may be more customary now, or it might be more common now that they don't have to pay a buyer agent in their head, right? So it's difference between perception and reality. So an agent goes out on that listing appointment, has the conversation and says, hey, I'm going to charge you 5% and we're going to give half of that to a buyer agent. And then that seller says, well, I read this CNN article that says I don't have to pay a buyer agent. Can you do it for 2.5% or 3%? In a market with very little inventory where agents are struggling, I can tell you that I'm pretty confident that some agents are going to say yes. They're going to say, yes, I can do it for 3%, or I can do it for 2.5%, etc. Now, again, these are all changes, right? These are changes on the perception of what buyers and sellers think. These are changes that are real in terms of contracts requiring that a buyer agency agreement be there. These are changes, potentially for how the listing contract gets signed, right? So again, I will, make a statement really quickly too, just to say that as I'm saying all of this stuff, one thing I do know for sure, I know two things for sure, more than anything else. The first thing is there are going to be changes, period. Point blank, there are going to be changes. The second thing is I'm not 100% sure how these changes are going to actually go into place. And anybody who tells you that either of those two statements are false is incorrect. So if somebody tells you for any reason that there are going to be no changes, that is false. If somebody tells you that they know 100% how this is going to play out, that's also false. So as I'm saying this, I go back just for really a quick second just to say, this has been our message all along, from day one. I've got my agent investor shirt on. Regardless of what you think about me, regardless of what you think about my company, whether you like me, you hate me, you love me, whatever, doesn't really matter. There has never been a time where it's more important for agents to add investing income into their arsenal. Even the prospect that your income could go down, and I think there is a likelihood that agent commission income is going to go down, right? It's definitely not going to go up. So we know that, right? Agent income is not going to go up because of these changes. If it, at best, it stays flat, and a more likely scenario is it goes down a little bit. Protect yourself by investing. Do a fix and flip deal with us. Buy assets where you get passive income. It is now more important than ever. Again, that's not the focus of what we're talking about today, but I wanted to drop that in because when we're talking about adapting to changes over the course of time, you want to make sure, in my opinion, that you're bulletproof, that your income, you're self-employed, right? It's tough enough as it is. Bulletproof your income by investing. Okay. Another comment to all of this is just that there may be, and I'm going to talk about some things that could happen. Not things that are going to happen, but some things that maybe could happen. There's a possibility that there are going to be agents or companies out there that create services that reduce the commission income. Like I'll just, give you an example, right? So a lot of buyers, again, this goes back to perception, not reality, but a lot of buyers, and I think we'll all admit this, a lot of buyers think that they're doing a lot of the work on their own, especially with how technology is. You can go on Zillow, you can go on Trulia, you can go on Redfin, and you can get a lot of information on your own. A lot of buyers don't really see what buyer agents do behind the scenes. So this is important to keep in mind. There may be services out there that offer to do some of this work for buyers at a heavy discount, right? Maybe it's 1%, maybe it's 0.5%, maybe it's a flat fee, maybe it's $500. Hey, we're going to give you, a list of our recommended vendors. Maybe you get telephone support. You've got to go look at the houses. Maybe we write up the offers. I'm just speculating and giving you guys some examples of how this might play out potentially. And why, by the way, would a buyer want to do that? Like why if they know that they're going to get representation, might they do that? Right? Because I think we can all admit and agree that in general, a buyer is better off having buyer representation than not. Right? It's better to have somebody on your side that's an expert than not. However, in a very low inventory market like we have today, a lot of buyers want to make their offers as competitive as possible. So if there's a service out there that says, hey, we're going to charge you a small fee to get you from point A to point B, and they package it up and they say, hey, this is going to be just as good as working with a buyer agent. Maybe it's really not as good as working with the buyer agent, but that's how they package it up. A certain percentage of buyers might actually want that or might sign up for that. Now, again, I'm not saying that this is the best thing for the buyer, the best thing for the industry, not even saying this is the best thing for the seller. I am talking about potential outcomes that could happen. Okay? So just something that could happen. So I talked about the fact that once this news came out, it fell into three camps of people that I noticed. I did a lot of posting, a lot of emailing, a lot of separate conversations with agents. So the three camps of opinions that people fall into today, camp number one is nothing's changed. And those are the people pounding the pavement saying, provide more value, provide more value, provide more value. Nothing's changed. We should have been getting buyer agent agreements all along. I've always gotten buyer agent agreements. We're going to, figure this out, and your income is not going to go down. So I equate this group of people to people that are playing Russian roulette. Now, we all know that if you play Russian roulette, kind of a, odd example, but I think it's going to be relevant here. You play Russian roulette and there's 6 opportunities, right? Six rounds or 8 rounds or whatever. And you know that there's a bullet in one of them, but most likely, you're going to be fine, right? Most likely you're going to be fine. But would you do it? Like knowing that there's a 1 in 8 chance that you're going to shoot yourself, are you going to play Russian roulette? And the answer to that is probably not, right? I don't think anybody that's listening right now would be too excited about the options of having a 12 or 25% chance of dying, right? So That's how I feel about this group, like saying nothing has changed, right? They might be right. They might be. Maybe it'll be very similar to what we have right now. That's the best case scenario, I think, for the industry, for agents. But why take that risk? Why not adapt? Why not get some investing income? Why not partner with us on a couple of deals? We just had a deal close last week. I'm not going to say the name of the agent, but prominent agent, prominent brokerage, $125,000 profit that we divided in two. Over a $60,000 check got cut to her. Okay. So we're talking about adapting. How can we adapt? Well, agents find investing deals all the time. They find properties that need work. In our partnership deal that we have, we put up the money, we do the construction, we split the profits 50-50. Why not add that in? Why play Russian roulette saying, hey, nothing's going to change? And maybe you end up being right, but you're taking too high of a risk, in my opinion. All right, second camp is, and this is the end of the world. People have heard this NAR, statement, end of the world. I'm going to go run out and get a job. I'm going to freak out. Agency is dead, etc. And I believe that those people are going to be wrong also. I do think, by the way, that one of the small benefits that will be had for the agents who stick around is that there will probably be less agents selling homes. I can tell you that there are a lot of agents struggling right now. We've been in a very tough market for the last couple of years. Transactions are down. People are frustrated. Successful agents are making a lot less money. For some agents, this is going to be the nail in the coffin. And parallel to this, by the way, is the fact that we have a robust job market, right? So agents don't just have to sell houses, right? They could also go out into the workforce and get a job working for somebody else. Unemployment is incredibly low. It's under 4% right now. Wages are fairly high relative to where they've been in the past. Some agents are just going to punt on selling homes. So, of course, that is going to positively impact the income of those who stick around in the business. At the end of the day, what I can tell you for sure is that regardless of how agency changes, there is always going to be a need for real estate experts. 100%. What that exactly looks like is to be determined, but there will always be a need. People are always going to buy houses. They're always going to sell houses. They're always going to need people that know what they're doing, right? So I don't believe the end of the world is here. Far from it. And again, if you read the book, Who Moved My Cheese, typically what happens when things change is those who adapt actually make more money than those who didn't. Those who don't adapt are the ones that get left behind. I want to give a real life example of something I experienced in my real estate agency career that I think will illustrate this point. So I got my real estate license in 2005, sold houses. Real estate market was crazy then. In 2005, 2006, we had these no doc, no income verification loans. Anybody could buy a house. It's very easy to make money as an agent because every person that had a pulse could buy a property. Lots of transactions were happening. All of a sudden, we all probably remember in 2007, 2008, the economy tanked and the value of homes went down, right? So agents had been operating for a while in an environment where prices were going up, anybody could get a loan, and nobody really ever lost their house back then because their equity kept going up and up and up. So all of a sudden, this change happened in 2008, 2007, 2008, 2009. And I remember the first appointment I ever went on. It was in Lynn, Massachusetts. It was a 2-family. Went on the appointment, met with the seller. I did my comps, saw that the property was worth $350,000. And I asked the seller, okay, what do you want to list it for? And they told me mid-5s. And I said, mid-5s? This is a 350 house. Long story short, that's what she owed, right? So she owed $550 on a house that was worth $350. Now, I immediately looked into and researched how I could potentially sell this house. The answer was you could short sell the house, and walked the seller through the process, completing a short sale. It was the only way to get the sale done, and that was the outcome that we needed. Many of my appointments in 2008, 9, 10, and even 11 were short sale appointments because people had overpaid for houses, the market had fallen, and that was the only way to sell the house. How that's relevant to today. Most real estate agents in 08, 9, 10, and 11 did not adapt, did not even offer short sales, did not figure out how to do short sales. As a 25-year-old, 26-year-old, it would be very common for me to have 30 to 40 short sale listings at a time, right? Very early on in my career, had a ton of listings. And I was getting these listings done because nobody else either wanted to do them or knew how to do them. And again, going back to like who moved my cheese, as soon as I saw that change, I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't read the book. It, I just wanted to make money, and I tried to figure out a way to do it and to serve my clients. That same mentality is the mentality that people want to have. But I saw many of my peers who didn't know what a short sale was 1 or 2 years into them being prevalent. Okay. So we talked about the fact of what the consumer headlines look like. I told you that anybody who tells you that they know what's going to happen 100% is wrong. Like, we don't know for sure. I do want to kind of talk a little bit too about some comments that I've gotten from agents. Some of them that I think are correct, and some of them I think I want to have a discussion as to why I think that it's maybe not the best, mindset or what's going to happen. So there was a comment on one of my Facebook posts that said, well, this is really too bad. This NAR settlement. Buyers are no longer going to be able to achieve home ownership. Meaning that if a buyer doesn't have an agent, they're not going to be able to buy a house. I am here to tell you that is not correct. Now, again, this is coming from somebody. I've got 400 agents. Love agents. I'm an agent. I love myself. Love you guys. Buyers who want to buy a house, who can get a loan, are going to figure out how to do this. It might not be the best way, might not be the way that makes the most sense, but I can tell you that buyers are going to figure out how to buy houses, right? And so buyers might not get the best representation. It might not be the best thing, but buyers are going to achieve home ownership, okay? Another comment. Somebody said, you're providing a service and deserve to get paid, okay? Now, deserving to get paid, it is not relevant here, right? We might deserve to get paid, and I agree that we do. But again, if a buyer has to come out of pocket, let's just say in theory, they have to come out of pocket for $5,000 to pay us, pay a buyer agent, and they don't have it. It doesn't really matter whether you deserve to get paid or you don't, right? It's that it can't happen, okay? So deserving and wanting to get paid, doesn't mean it's going to happen. A comment that I totally agree with. Somebody sent this to me. And this is what I believe. And again, somebody in my position who owns a brokerage is usually going to say, like, this is a good thing for agents. There's going to be no issues. But you guys know you're going to get what I really believe. I'm never going to steer anybody wrong. I'm going to tell you my thoughts, even if they're not great. And this comment by the agent that I know that sent this to me is not a great one, but it's a comment that I unfortunately believe. They said, okay, Tom, I gather my thoughts. Here is my bottom line. As an agent, you'll need to work harder for less money once this goes into effect. You'll need to explain your worth and value to buyers in order for them to work with you, and then you won't make as much when you finally do get them a house. Unfortunately, I agree with this. What does that translate into? I'm not 100% confident. Does that mean that your income goes down a little bit? Doesn't mean it goes down 20% or 10%. I don't know yet. I don't know. Because I've heard people, I'll give another thing that I've heard. I've heard that a lot of people believe that the way that buyer agents are going to get paid is that the buyer agent is going to present their offer with a buyer agent commission. Okay, so I want to just talk about how this, again, in real life might play out. Okay, so you have a buyer that is approved for a $500,000 loan. Okay, you have a house. You make a $500,000 offer. It's the highest that buyer can go. They can't go to 501. They can't go to 502. Okay. Offers presented with a 2% commission, right? A $10,000 commission going to that agent, right? This is how it might be done, right? So a 2% commission on a $500,000 offer where your buyer's tapped out gets presented to the listing agent. The listing agent presents that offer to the seller. They've got competing offers. And let's just say that the other highest offer is 502 or 503. What might happen, right, if we think about this logically, is that offer might get countered on the commission, on the agent commission. Meaning that a seller might say, I'm willing to take a $500,000 offer, but with only paying out 1% commission. If that happens, right, again, what's the reality of this situation? In most cases, the agent is probably going to accept that 1% commission. They can say no. I'm not even sure what their rights would be to potentially, say no. But I think that is something that's going to happen in reality. I think that commission, that buyer agent commission, not all the time. Okay, let me be very clear about this. Not all the time. But I think it's going to be open for debate, right? How did it used to work? It used to work that the buyer agent compensation was put into MLS. Buyer agent knew what they were getting paid. Rarely, if ever, gets renegotiated. I'm sure it does. You probably had a deal where it got renegotiated. How this is going to happen is that the buyer agent commission will probably most likely be open for renegotiation more often. So again, based on this comment that somebody said to me, they said, gather my thoughts. You'll need to explain your worth and value to buyers in order for them to work with you. And then you won't make as much when you do finally get them a house. That's part of it, right? Another message from a very prominent brokerage that I mentioned a while ago. They said, this stuff is in litigation. It could take 5 years for the stuff to play out. So when do you want to start adapting, right? Like knowing that, again, this could take place in July, could take place in 5 years, could take place in a year. I don't even want to speculate on the timing on this. I don't know. I would go based on July. I mean, it's in print as July, right? Maybe it gets extended. But, again, I've got 4 kids. My livelihood is important to me. The livelihood of my agents is important to me. I am certainly not going to put out a message saying that this could take 5 years. Why? So that somebody takes action later and takes that risk that it's going to happen in July. Don't love it. Somebody else said, well, this is going to spur more inventory. Can't see how in the world that would impact inventory. I've heard people say that this can impact pricing. Can't see how in the world it impacts pricing. Nobody's going to sell their house now, spurring more inventory. Nobody's going to sell their house now. Oh, I wasn't thinking about moving, but now that I know I don't have to pay a buyer agent, I'm going to move. So doesn't make any sense. Same thing with pricing. So how will buyer agents get paid? We talked about the fact that buyer agents may now just present an offer with compensation in it. That could be one way. Another way potentially could be that sellers still offer the buyer's commission, and somehow they have to find out about what that commission is, not on the MLS. Maybe it's a phone call. Maybe it's on another website. I don't know what's going to be allowed, but that could be another way. I've heard other people, and this again is something that makes me very nervous. I've heard other people say lenders are going to figure out how to get the buyer agent commission financed. Two things worry me about that. The first is when? Like, they're going to do it before July? Maybe they will. I hope they do. Wouldn't want to bank on that. And number two, like, what if they don't? Well, what if they don't? Or what if they figure out a way to get 1% of it financed? A lot of unknowns, and I certainly wish I had all the answers. But one answer I have is diversify your income. That is an easy answer, right? I just talked about that deal that I did with an agent, cut them a $60,000 check. That is a way to say, no matter what happens, I'm going to be bulletproof. Whether you partner with us, whether you buy assets, how do you learn how to do any of this stuff? Well, one thing that I recommend that everybody do is to register for all of our upcoming events at www.agentinvestorevent.com. We're going to post one soon, but if you're interested in attending our events in person to learn how to invest, fill out that form now, even though it's got an old date on it. And we will reach back out to you once we have a new date on the calendar. The other thing I would recommend doing is becoming a podcast listener to the Agent Investor podcast. You can do that by going to www.agentinvestorpodcast.com. And I would recommend listening to as many episodes of it as you can. As an agent, you're in your car all the time, right? So as you're driving around, listen to different episodes of the podcast. So continuing on though, right? So another thing that I do want to comment on is I don't think this is going to be great for the industry. Yeah, I've talked about what the perception is going to be, but I want to kind of give an example of how I think this kind of like might work out. That all of us can kind of relate to. So, we go to the store, right? And you've got these self-checkout, areas. And some people are really good at going through self-checkout, right? I actually don't happen to be one of them. But self-checkout in theory, right? It's supposed to save you time. It's supposed to save the company by paying somebody, right? Like you're not getting somebody who's going to help you check out, who's got expertise. Now, I don't know about you, but every time I go through one of those, like I go to Whole Foods a lot. It's in Melrose, in the city that I live, and I go through it, and there's always like an issue. Like I go to put something on, and I don't know which button to select, and then all of a sudden, like I don't know if this has ever happened to any of you guys, but like you get this like red flashing light above you, which basically says, some staff member has to come over and help you. Probably happens to me like 50% of the time. And I always leave whenever I do the self-checkout feeling like I just wish there were more registers open, because I'm not as good at doing the self-checkout as somebody who just checks people out all day long, right? And I think that's going to be, a similar thing. And keep in mind, in this self-checkout example, I'm pretty tech savvy. Like I don't feel like I should have that many problems, but I always end up having them. Now, there are definitely people who just can't even do it. And I think that's going to be what kind of plays out with if agents don't have the representation that they need. I think it's going to play out in the next couple of years that, oh, you know what? We actually had a good system here. And maybe things will start to go back. Like if they do change, maybe they'll start to go back over time. But again, that's just my commentary here of kind of how I feel. So I'm just going on record here. Like, I don't think this is really a good thing for any of the parties. I don't think it's a good thing for the buyers. I don't think it's a good thing for buyer agents. I don't think it's a good thing for list agents, right? List agents might have to do a lot more work now to earn the same amount of money potentially. I don't think it's good for the sellers. I don't think it's good for the attorneys, right? There could be scenarios where attorneys have to get more involved with all this stuff. I don't think this is good. But my statement here is that it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I've heard a lot of arguments online. well, this isn't good. Yeah, it isn't good, but that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what we think. Our opinion doesn't matter. The rules are likely to change, so we need to adapt. Right? It doesn't matter that we deserve to get paid. Yes, we do, but it doesn't matter. Right? So you've got to adapt. So the questions will be like, can this buyer fee be financed somehow? Another question, like if work gets put on attorneys, right? If attorneys have to get more involved in these transactions, well, what's going to happen? Because most attorneys, don't pick up their phone after hours, don't pick up their phone on weekends. I mean, that's one of the beautiful things about having, agents. I mean, it's not really necessarily always great for the agent, but as we know, we don't have hours. We work weekends, we work nights. If some of this work gets put on a service, call it like a Zillow going to be open Sunday at 8:00 for a text message? Maybe they will be, but probably not. So there could be so many different solutions here. There's so many different things that could happen. Couple of silver linings out of this. I think there's two silver linings that I thought about. Yeah. The first is that I'm pretty confident this is going to produce less agents. So what is it? Why is that good? Well, it's not necessarily good for the people that leave. Maybe they wanted to continue to be agents, but it is good for the people that stick around. We see this all the time, and I never really wish for there to be less agents in the industry, but I think that in terms of income, less agents mean more income for all of us. So if there's less income because of this ruling, and then there's less agents, hopefully it balances out to some extent. Maybe it does. The other silver lining is that I think this could maybe be a wake-up call for some people that you've got to protect yourself against having 100% of your income be agency related. Okay. Again, this is coming from somebody who's got 400 plus agents. It is in my best interest for every real estate agent to continue to sell houses, even if it doesn't make sense for them. It is in my best interest for people to just sell homes, right? That's how, I make a good portion of my income. But I do think that it's time that agents look and say, hey, how can I add additional revenue streams? So I did a post that got a lot of attention that I think is so important for agents. And it got like more likes and more comments than any other post that I've done in a long time. And the post said, it was just words. All it said was, partner with us on 3 deals this year and earn around $100,000. Invest the $100K into a passive asset and earn $20K for life. I'm going to say it again and then explain it. Partner with us on 3 deals this year and earn around $100,000. Invest the $100K into a passive asset and earn $20K for life. Okay. What does that mean? Well, I've been promoting the partnership program, and all you need to do as a real estate agent is to have your eyes and ears open for sellers whose home needs work or who want an easy sale. Refer that deal over to us. We're going to go on the appointment with you, analyze the property, make an offer. If the seller accepts, we're going to buy the property. We're going to renovate it. We're going to resell it. We're going to split our profits 50-50. Our average profit to agent partner deal to date is an $80,000 profit. Okay. So 80,000 divided by 2 is $40,000 per deal. Do 3 of those deals in a year with us, you've got $120,000. By the way, do 3 of those deals with us, you might actually make more than being an agent, but forget about that for a second. You take that $120,000 and you invest it into a passive asset, like a multifamily. On average, our 3-family units are cash flowing $500 per door. So you use that $120 for a down payment. You cash flow $500 per door. That is $1,500 per month. Multiply that by 12, gets you to $18,000. $18,000 for life. You're cash flowing $18,000 per life while building equity. Oh, and by the way, that cash flow is going to go up as rents go up over the years. you're paying down that asset. Okay. This is the power of investing, right? What do we want? We want guaranteed monthly income, and we want it to increase year over year over year over year. Do this for 5 years in a row. Partner with us on 3 deals a year. Buy 5 assets, 1 asset per year, 5 years in a row. You've got $100,000 a year coming in. Okay. Now you can do the math up and down, right? Someone might say, well, I can't come across 3 deals in a year. Well, maybe you come across 1, maybe you come across 2, right? Again, how do you learn how to find them? Go to www.agentinvestorevent.com and register, and I'll send you the information for our next upcoming event. Okay. Investing is evergreen, right? This is the other component of investing that I think is really so important. It's evergreen. It's going to continue forever. Some of these doomsday scenarios could happen. I'm not saying they're going to, but I've heard comments like, well, brokerage is going to go the way of the travel industry. Look at what happened to travel agents. Whether I agree with that or not, it doesn't even matter. The fact that's not such an outlandish statement that I can say, no, factually, that won't happen. The fact that there is a potential for that, even if it's small, makes me say, what is my best course of action for my family? It's to protect against that. Protect against the worst case scenario, like life insurance. I own life insurance. Do you think I'm going to die tomorrow? No, absolutely not. But there is a chance. Probability is super low. I want to protect against that probability, right? Investing is evergreen. Once you own those assets, the only way they get taken away from you is if you sell them, right? That $20K per year, $20K a year per life, that doesn't go away. So that's what you can do today. The other thing you can do today is to pay attention. This stuff is going to change quickly. I promise you. Some of the stuff that I said today is going to end up being false, right? Some statements are going to be a little bit off because of how the market actually changes based on this. There's going to be information that I didn't know that maybe it doesn't even exist today. Maybe it comes out in a month, something related to the settlement or how it goes into place. So it's not really, to me, it's not necessarily important to memorize everything I said today, other than to get other pieces of income, investing income, but to pay attention to the changes that are happening and to adapt. Okay. Another thing I want to say is be very careful of who you listen to and what their motive is. In many cases, when I hear people talking, right, I hear what their motive is. Now, if their motive is for you to not change because that benefits them, I would be concerned about that, right? Think about the motive. Think about why they're saying what they're saying and whether that makes sense for you. So again, there could be so much more that I could say today, but I think I've covered most of my thoughts. We'll probably give more information. As more information comes up, I'll give more information. But I want to go through, before I sign off today, again, the who moved my cheese principles here. So again, it says the handwriting is on the wall. Change happens. They keep moving the cheese, right? Change is going to keep happening. What you need to do is going to change, right? Anticipate change. We know that change is going to happen, right? How it's going to happen, we don't know, but get ready for the change. Monitor change, right? Adapt to change quickly. The worst thing that you can do is wait, right? That's why that comment of, oh, well, this litigation could go on forever. Well, yeah, it could, but why are you going to wait? Yeah, like you can do your homework like the morning of, when it's due. But why would you do that, right? Would you tell your kids, oh, your homework is due in a week? Just wait until like 10 minutes before school to do it. Like you wouldn't do that, right? You would say, your homework's due in a week, do it tonight, right? So that it's done. And if there are any problems, we can cover it tonight. So don't adapt quickly. Change. enjoy the change, right? Change doesn't have to be bad. One of the ways that we can enjoy the change is by making our situation better than it is today. If you look and you follow us and you know what we're about, you know that we preach that sales will make you a living, investing will make you wealthy. This change should be good for you. You do a few flips a year with us. You buy a couple of assets a year for yourself. You invest in syndications. You do investing. This change should be good. This should be a wake-up call to say, yes, I make a lot of income through selling real estate. No, I'm not going to quit selling real estate, but I am going to diversify my income. The change is good. Maybe this is exactly what some of you needed to say, okay, I've been sitting on the sideline thinking about investing for a long time. Now I know I need to do it. Before it was just like something that might have been nice to do. Now it's like I really need to. So the last thing, be ready for change quickly and enjoy it again and again and again. Why? Because they keep moving the cheese. So guys, I hope this was helpful. Like I said, I'll be the first to tell you that I don't know everything about how this is going to make, how these changes are going to happen. Nobody does for sure, but start to react now, start to adapt now, and you'll be ahead of the curve. You'll be better off than you were before. But if you wait, that's when I'd be really nervous. So I wish I had better news today. I wish I could in good conscience come on and say, hey, nothing's going to change. Don't worry. Don't make any changes. I wish I could say that, but I can't. So I hope this was helpful. You guys know how to get me if you ever need me. Best way to get me, send me a message on Facebook. My Facebook account, by the way, is Tommy Caffarella, Tommy Caffarella, not the Tom Caffarella account, Tommy Caffarella. Follow me if you want more content like this, and send me a message if you ever need any help. So thank you guys for tuning in. And as soon as we have more information regarding the settlement, I'll definitely let you know. Thanks.